Hey, it's your buddy Big Ed again. We're going to do another modular performance, except today I've finally populated my Pittsburgh modular patch box, and we're going to incorporate that into the performance. Finally got all the modules in. Still missing a few with the IntelliGel, but they'll get here eventually. And so I'm going to keep all the jibber jabber to the end. If you want to know what's going on and hear me talk about it, great, but I know a lot of people don't like talking, so I'm just going to get to the performance with 3 cameras. Hopefully all 3 cameras work, because I did this an hour ago and one of the cameras died. The battery didn't hold out, even, Yeah, so I'm just going to perform. And you're gonna, if you want to stick around to hear what's going on, we'll do that later. Otherwise, let's quit the jibber jabber and get right to it. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Just making sure the cameras are still working. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Totally different from the last one I did that you won't get to see, but I will put up a mix of the one I did before this when the camera failed, because though it started out kind of rough, because you're not really, when you're, at least when I'm performing free improvisation, I'm not thinking about cameras or pedals or device or anything. It's just pure inspiration and I'm just going. And so the last one took a minute to get going. This one kind of went right into it. But I really liked where the last one went. So I'll put that up free on Bandcamp. You'll see my Bandcamp link in my link tree below. It'll be a free download. So I'll put that up pretty soon. So what was going on there? So with the Pittsburgh modular patch box, I have this Bacillus iteratus altar, which is a percussive, it's a percussion module. It's a drum percussion module, but it needs to be triggered, right? So it's being triggered by the gate. Is that right? It's being triggered by the gate of the after later steps, which is a step sequencer. But it's also being triggered by, what is it being triggered by? It's also being triggered by the steps of the after later steps. Duh. So I've got the steps in a tip-top dual cable. The steps is going into the triggers, that's triggering it, but it's also being triggered by the gate. So there's a lot of madness going on, not your normal drum percussion pattern to begin with. But then that's also going into the qubit data bender. Qubit data bender is a circuit bent sample glitch corruptor, a lot of things. And I've got a lot of things informing all these devices. For instance, the after later steps is, so the end of burst, which means at the end of the 8-step sequence, the end of burst is triggering the BAT. What that is bass, alto, tenor. Those are the 3 tones of sounds that are in the Bacillus iteratus alter drum thing. So it's actually switching between those at the end of burst. Dig? So that's really cool. The gate of the steps is also going, like I said, that's going into the trigger. The pulse of the steps, this is quite cool. It's sending the pulse into the qubit right input. The gate, we talked about the gate, end of burst. The trigger is going into the SLM, which is skin liquid metal settings. Skin is more drums, 808 type stuff. Metal is a whole nother tone, and liquid is its own tone. So it's triggering between those 3, which is crazy. I also have the clock is going into the repeats of the qubit data bender. And the right gate is going into the input of the expert sleeper's disting. The disting is a multi-effect unit. You have to choose which algorithm you want to use. In this case, it's sample and hold. and go into the submenus and adjust those accordingly. It's crazy. It's pretty difficult to work with. I mean, it's a great module, especially since it's only 2 HP width, but you really have to be careful with the knobs going and digging in. Maybe live time, I did it beforehand. I found what I wanted and then just let it rip. The qubit data bender, that was the right input. The left input of the data bender is being fed by the output of the Bacillus iteratus alter. I've got the gate output for the mix, the CV output, I'm sorry, for the mix going into the pitch of the BIA. I've got the repeats output going into the, that's going into the clock of the steps, and the gate for the repeats is going, where is it going? It's going into the X input of the disting. The disting has 2 inputs. And the CV for the time, corruption, blah, 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 is going into the morph of the BIA. So, and then everything is basically summed into each other, so to speak, in one way or another. The A output of the disting is into the right input of the bursts, which is mutable clouds, micro clouds module made by Momo. And then the other input of clouds is being fed by the left output of the data bender, but first it's being fed the output from the BIA as well. So there's a lot of cross-pollination. Maybe there's a better way to do this to get the sounds I wanted. I don't know, but it was done on the fly just before I hit record, and I found the sound, I went with it, and then I just adjusted a few things as we went along. One of the things that was done on the fly was adding a Pamela's New Workout output into the fold input of the BIA, and the spread input is being controlled by a different output of the Pamela's New Workout. That was done on the fly, pretty much, I think. The IntelliGel palette changed a little bit since last time. I took out the BIA because I think it works better in this, and I put an EQ in here, the PE1. I was finding a little bit of buildup around the 300 hertz, 300 to 400 hertz that I needed to address when you start stacking all this stuff. And the mutable ears, you can plug a microphone into there so you can sample yourself or the players around you in a room, or you can make sounds into it and then have that go somewhere else, like to the arbhar, or in this case it's going right to the reverb. I didn't really use it this time, but you can hit it and it's got a contact mic built in, as well as you can put your own mic in. Everything's basically routed. I'm using all 8 outputs on the Pamelas. One of those outputs is going into the quad VCA. The output of that input is going back into itself. The output of that input is going back. So going into channel 1 out into channel 2 out into channel 3, so that it's cascading itself, and then you can have 3 different settings for the VCA, and take that output as well as output 4. In this case, output 4 is going to the mutable ears envelope input. We didn't use it, so it's not important. But output 3 is feeding the pitch modulation of the arbhar, and was doing some really cool things. The coolest thing I think that was happening was channel 5 of my Pamela's new workout was triggering the layers of the Instruo Arbhar. Why is that important? Well, what that was doing was there's 7 layers, I can count, that you can sample into this and manipulate. Well, having my Pamela set up the way I did, it was switching between the layers automatically for me, so I didn't have to manually turn it. And also, it was turning on the capture button automatically, so that every once in a while it was random. So it was randomly switching through the 7 layers, but it was also randomly capturing. That freed me up to do some other things. Didn't really come into play too much into this, but it's very handy because it can save you a lot of. You don't have 3 hands, I think most of you, right? If you do, I want a 3rd. And I had the clock, the onset out of the clock of the Pamelas was going. The onset from the Arbhar was going into the clock of the Pamelas. That was also controlling things. So the filter was always in, just like last time. I haven't changed the filter setting. I found a nice filter setting that I like, but what I did change is, instead of the filter setting affecting my, let me turn around. Instead of the filter setting affecting my signal going in, I decided because I really like my night sky, I really like my Strymon night sky, and it was cooler to have the filter affect on the FX8 XL, you have 3 inputs for effect, that you can affect that effect with something else. So I've got 2 things. The second effect is chorus modulation. So I've got 2 things affecting that. I've got, the first one is a Pamela's output, but the second is the filter also. So I've got modulation, the chorus is being affected by modulation. The chorus is being affected by modulation of my choice. Very specifically detailed setup in the Pamela's submenus. And then I've got the filter going into that as well. So the modulation is being modulated and filtered to my liking. I've got the diffusion being controlled by another output of Pamela's. And I've got the decay being controlled by very specifically an output of Pamela's. Why? Because I wanted the decay to bloom in some places, but not bloom too much and not be blooming all of the time. So I took my time, and that way I can affect those parameters exactly the way I want. I think it sounds really good. What else have I got here? Oh, okay, just right and left, in and out. So that's it for the reverb. And the quad VCA is right, we talked about that. Okay, yeah, so we got it. So that's about it. I think if I missed something, just ask. I love the choices I've made. It ain't cheap, I know. Like I said, set a budget, stick to it. But I'm really happy because I've made some good choices. I am starting to go, oh, well, if I had only 8 HP more space. And I think that might be about it. I think I was looking at immutable rings, and there's 8 HP versions out there. I would really love to have the rings, But for now, this is working, and it's manageable, which I think is a very important thing. And I'm still under my budget. If I had to, I could still stick to my budget if I sold the Pittsburgh modular patch box and got a larger rack and put the rings in there, but it would still have to be easily portable. I'm gonna have to give that some thought. But there you go. The only pedals I used, by the way, were the Tensor, the Red Panda Tensor, one of my faves because it's super hi-fi. And with the new update, you can, the new firmware, you can do up to almost 10 seconds of sampling. But that was used very sparsely in this, like it was just for a few little things just to get it percolating, and then it was pretty much out. And then my Zoom MS50G was used for an octave down and a fifth down patch that I've created, but that's run through a one control wet dry mix because I think that the MS50G sort of affects your signal a little bit. Not in a really bad way, but if you've got what you want from your instrument, it will change it a little. So I run it through a wet dry box, and it wasn't fully wet, so you weren't getting the full, the low octave, low fifth thing in there. And that was it. Everything else was an always on pedal. The rest all came from these two suckers, for better or worse. I'll try to do a better one. Like I said, I did a much better performance about an hour ago, and the cameras crashed. So, but this was my first performance with the two of these together. So, we'll get better. All right? Catch you later.